Hi guys, so today I'm going to be doing a film review, and that is for A Cure for Wellness. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So this was a new release that I literally saw the day after its release date, which I don't usually do. I was obviously very pumped to see it, and I just based that desire to see it off of like a really short mini trailer that I saw. It is at 18, so I saw that before the 9 o'clock watershed time period, so it was literally like a couple of second clip and I was like, oh, I'm intrigued, what's this? And just from that I wanted to go and see what it was. So initially I wasn't too sure what time period this was set in, but it is modern day. It is like, I think it was 2016 like it's set. I think if you watch the film you kind of know what I mean about why I was a little bit confused at the time setting. It's definitely clear when you watch it, but yeah, I just thought I'd mention that quickly. So in this film we're following a young Wall Street stockbroker, is that how you pronounce it? I'm not too sure, called Lockhart. I never really remembered his first name, unfortunately. I didn't really pick up on it, so I only know him as his last name, which is Lockhart. Who is very full of himself, nasty, he's quite self-absorbed, and he's basically just wanting to climb the social ladder to success in his industry. So I think from the get-go you're kind of almost repelled by the character. You don't want to cheer him on for the events that come, and he's just not a nice, relatable character for a lot of us, I suppose, which I think was a good tactic to go on. Especially because how he changes a little bit throughout the film, which I'll get into a little bit more later. Anyway, he's basically sent on the task to retrieve a very important member of the company, I guess, from a strange bar that's focused on health and wellness, I guess, and he's basically sent there to retrieve him and bring him back because I think he's got a load of crap to deal with. However, it is a much darker story than this, and as it went on I found myself cheering for our very arrogant main character. I would describe this to be a horror thriller that definitely got kind of whimsical and fantastical as it went on. It really kept me on edge at all times, and I think the music helped with that because it was really haunting and beautiful. The visuals of the film were really stunning and crisp and kind of reminded me of Tim Burton's Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, but that's where the similarities really end. Sound design was amazing, really amplifying the slightest, subtlest of noises, really enhanced the unsettling feeling I had growing throughout the film. There was a lot of conspiracy weaved in around the characters, and the characters themselves were really well designed and fleshed out, some more than others. The acting overall was really enjoyable, really well done. However, there were some dud moments, but I mean the general level was pretty great. The accents and just the general voices of like the characters was so nice, and there was a particular doctor who's like the main doctor. His voice, Joe said he should read like audiobooks because it is captivating. It is a really nice sounding voice. The story was really unique, but it did get a little bit crazy at the end. It went out of shape a little bit, but I mean I was kind of building myself up for that anyway. I thought it might get a little bit weird to a crazy extreme, but just generally I think the whole film, even with that little weird bit, was wonderfully done. It is extremely graphic with some kind of uncomfortable scenes, but I feel like the uncomfortable scenes weren't as often as I thought they would be. It's definitely more of a psychological thing for me, again in the way the sound design is, how it's very amplified in the slightest of noises. I think that's what made me more freaked out about certain things other than any bits of gore or weird scenes that was around. Definitely what was happening in my mind was more scary, and I kind of liked how it did that for me. The screening that we went to see was surprisingly quiet. I feel like with me and Joe included there was about 6, maybe 10 of us. So much so we were thinking that we had gone to the wrong screening initially, because it was just us two sitting there for ages. Like, we got there maybe 20 minutes early and we were sitting there, and usually it would be packed by then, you know, getting comfortable and everything, but there was nobody there until the film like literally just started showing the adverts. So Joe had to go out and like check that we were in the right room because it was kind of making us a bit uncomfortable. So I do hope, if it hasn't already, it will pick up and get more attention. I think it is a little bit difficult to market because maybe depending on lifestyle it's difficult to see 18+ stuff advertised on telly, like unless you're watching telly late at night, and they don't really seem to show it on like bus stations and stuff like that. But I would definitely recommend it. I hope it gets promoted a little bit more because I'm not seeing the views there, you know. I do hope it picks up a bit. So the reason I didn't give it a 5 stars was because there were a few plot holes, which I'll explain in the spoiler bit in a second, and really as well because some of the scenes were slightly out of place and didn't really fit the rest of the story. However, I really did enjoy it overall, and yeah, it's definitely a really good watch and I'd recommend it. So that's it for the non-spoilery section of this video. If you want to go on to see what I thought about some things in detail, I won't be going over every little thing, but just some things that stayed in my mind that I want to chat to you about. Feel free to watch. If you've watched it as well and you want to talk about some of the spoilery stuff, just mention that you've got spoilers in your comment down below and I'll read it and reply, obviously. So before I actually went to see the film, I thought that the title could be read in two ways. A cure for wellness, right? Take this cure to be well, or a cure for wellness. I have to amplify what I mean by the words. A cure for wellness, a cure to stop being well, which makes sense, didn't it? Because obviously by the end we find out that the doctors are actually giving them stuff to give diseases to the body, technically in order to find a cure, but you know, it's not helping them, it's making them ill, it's dehydrating the bodies and it's killing them. So that was interesting. I don't know if I'm just being a bit of a weirdo trying to figure out hidden meanings and that, but I thought it was cool that I thought that. I don't know. I don't know if that was intended or not, I don't know. I kind of already sussed out the connection of the doctor and Hannah, if that was her name, to the Baron and the Baroness of the original kind of story. I didn't suss it out to the fact that she was his daughter. However, I realised that he was probably either a major fanboy of the Baron or the Baron himself. I am still confused to how the Baron and his daughter survived for all those years. So you know, when everyone was hinting and telling Lockhart about like the history of the place, they were saying it was like 100 or 200 years ago that all that main original events happened. So I don't really know how they managed to stay alive for that long, but I guess that's the fantasy side of it. Maybe it was the water, because apparently it did have magical properties, but obviously there was like eels in it. I don't know, I'm just still a little bit confused on that. If you do know what I mean and you have an answer to that, let me know, but I don't know if that's just to be left hanging and not really answered. So that was kind of a plot hole in my opinion. Lockhart's mum's death kind of confused me. It was really interesting that they showed it at the same time that he was having his car accident, which by the way, that deer, oh my god, that really made me choke up a little bit. That was horrible. Like, that was graphic. The deer was staring at them whilst he was being like in pain and everything. Anyway, so that was interesting that at the same time as he went to his crash, she like gasped her last breath, wasn't it, or something. But I don't understand where that falls in the story, because I thought, okay, he's gone back, but how did he get back? But it didn't. So did it happen? It happened before he actually went to the spa, right? But I don't understand why it showed it at the same time as him being in his car accident. I really don't get that bit. Again, I don't know if that's another plot hole or if I just missed something there. So if anyone could explain that to me, please feel free. I'd really appreciate that. Also, I loved that throughout the whole film there was nothing really the matter with his leg at all. It was just a way to immobilise him and I guess make him feel a bit vulnerable, I suppose, to deter him away from finding out certain things. And I love the fact that when he did get into difficult situations, the fact that he had this cast on his leg was, to me, more thrilling, because I thought, oh my gosh, if he does get caught doing something that, like being somewhere that he shouldn't be, he's going to find it difficult to make a quick escape, and that made me nervous and more on edge, which I loved because that's what I wanted from the film, I suppose. So that definitely set my heart to racing. By the end we've got some major character growth in Lockhart and Hannah as well as a person, I suppose, but for Lockhart particularly because he's, I guess, who I'm more interested in, I suppose, because I really disliked him at the beginning. I like how he kind of let go of some of his arrogance and freed himself up a little bit. I do hope he's still got some of that ambition that drove him to be successful, but not to the extent that it made him a horrible person, you know. So hopefully he keeps a little bit of that with him, but just not to that severity. And I'm really intrigued about how him and Hannah are going to live their life now, like where they're going to go, what's going to happen next. Like, he completely seems to have abandoned his job. Like, where do they go from here, you know? I really like the way that, in a way, the eels in the water ended up being the creepy build-up and not some super horrifying monster, unless you count the monster as the doctor, which I suppose many of us would. However, that was like the things that were building up, like when the toilet kept making that weird noise. It was the eels in there, it wasn't a hand grubbing out, do you know what I mean? I just found that quite refreshing, because in all these horror films it's like major jump scares or something being really grotesque and horrible, but in that it was as simple as eels, so I could get my head around that, and in a way for me that makes it more creepy because they're real life things, do you know what I mean, and they can cause harm. So that was intriguing for me, but at the same time I can definitely see how it could be anticlimactic for some people that are hoping to get that really creepy scare and finding out, oh, it's just eels. what's the problem with that? I can see it both ways, but I really enjoyed it personally. The ending, I've mentioned this a little bit already, but it did feel kind of random in comparison to the rest of the film. This is where all the fantasy and everything just really took over, and I feel like they almost ran out of time, and they decided to rush everything. That's how it felt to me. The fantasy really just exploded in a really short amount of time. I actually think that, you know, when Lockhart was writing his note, which was a similar note that the original guy wrote to the company about him finding freedom and how he can see things now, I thought that would be the end, and I was like, kind of like, no, I don't want it to be the end, because then it'd be a massive cliffhanger, but at the same time that would have made an awesome ending. I think it could have almost have just been left there, because by the end it was just really fantastical, and I was definitely going into it thinking it was going to be more of a thriller, creepy, I don't know, maybe a bit weird, you know, but that kind of pushed it out a little bit. I know some people won't enjoy that. It was just a little bit weird and a little bit, bam, this is happening, this is so random, it's just all of a sudden happened. I still enjoyed it, but maybe it could have been done without. So that is my review of A Cure for Wellness. Let me know what you thought of the film yourself, and I will speak to you in another video soon. Bye!